Hello and welcome to today's Admin Chat. My name's Amanda Johnson and I'm here to talk about creating the life you love in 2019. Before I do that, I'd just very quickly like to introduce myself to you. So I run a company called VACT Limited and I coach, train and mentor PAs, EAs and virtual assistants to have authentic and awesome VA businesses. So for some people, that's helping them to make the transition from being employed through to self-employment, and for others, that's just helping them to have the better business that they are looking for. I'm absolutely passionate about inspiring, challenging and supporting business owners. I've shared with you my Twitter ID, which is @VATrainingPro, and if you've got any questions whatsoever, then please tweet me using the hashtag Adminchat. So let's talk about 2019 and planning your best year ever. These are the things I'd like to cover. We're going to talk about the last 12 months because actually before we plan the next 12 months, we need to look back and actually just see from where we've come from. We're going to talk about your why, your vision, a couple of different methods for goal setting, how we can break it down and make sure that actually it's doable, some of the resources that you might need, and then we'll talk about accountability and support and moving you forwards, because this is all about action. What I'd just like to remind you is that a goal without a plan is just a wish. And I think that sometimes we've all had a dream and thought, yeah, I'll do that tomorrow. But do you know what? Tomorrow never comes. And so what I'd like to do is to give you some tools, some tips and some techniques that you can apply, and hopefully instead of that goal just being a wish, it can actually become your reality. So here's that quick reminder again of what we're going to cover in this admin chat. So before we start looking forwards, we need to look back. And when we look back, I want us to review what it is we've actually achieved over the last 12 months. Now, for some people, you might have in the past created a journal. Perhaps you journal every day. And you journal about the things that are happening in your life. Now, don't panic if you haven't created that journal up until now. I personally find journaling really hard, but I ran a guest webinar the other day with an expert, and her name's Ali Moore, and Ali said, if we start just trying to journal the positives that are happening in our life, we actually bring in more positivity. And I quite like that idea. Now, you don't have to go out there and buy some fancy journal. You could just use a notebook and pen and just capture the things that are important to you. What I do like though is something called a victory book. Now, I think a victory book calls out for one of those really pretty notebooks or a scrapbook or just something that you can sort of relate to. And here I want you to capture any business lessons, any quotes, any mantras, any testimonials, any feedback that somebody's given you. The things that inspire positivity. The things that allow you to realise what it is you're achieving. With my one-to-one clients, one of the things I get them to do is to each week commit to doing 3 things that's actually going to move their lives forwards. Now, sometimes that's in their business life and sometimes that's in their personal life. But we commit to trying to do 3 things that are going to help us move towards those goals. And then what they do is they come back each week and talk about how they got on. Now, I don't tell them off if they haven't achieved those goals. But the whole point is it's about accountability. But the great thing is with a journal and a victory book is we can capture those. How many times do you sit there and think, oh, I haven't really achieved much this week? Whereas if you could look back and actually see some of the things you have achieved, you might actually start rewarding yourself for the small things. As part of that review though, what I'd like you to think about is, do you have any outstanding goals at the end of 2018? So when we were in January of this year, did you tell yourself that you were going to try and do something this year? How did you get on? Did you achieve it? If you didn't achieve it, why not? Was it actually that you weren't really committed to moving and achieving that goal? Or was it something else? Did actually the universe or a family situation or a professional environment stop you from getting there? It's worth just looking, was it within your control or was it within somebody else's power and control? And how did that make you feel? I also want you to talk about or to think about, did you keep any bad habits? Now I know personally one of my habits I wanted to improve for 2018 was to A, move more, and B, drink more water. Do you know what? I was rubbish at both. When you work from home, you can sit at your desk and quite often you don't move. And it's just purely the habit of getting up, walking to the kitchen, getting a nice glass cold water and walking back. But we get so busy, head down, focused in what it is we're doing that we forget those things. So hey, I'm sharing with you one of my 2019 habits, or one of my plans for 2019, should I say. So, I've said we need to review how the last year has gone. But before we set goals ready for 2019, I'd also like to think about, what is it we're actually doing? Why is this goal that you're wanting to set yourself, or this life you're wanting to give yourself, so important? So I want you to think of a couple of things. If money and time were no object, what would you do? What really ignites your passion, makes you light up? What are the things that actually you think, do you know what? That's what I would do. And it might be that you need to think about what's lit you up in the past. What's made you feel like you've achieved something. And then, if you lost everything tomorrow, what would hurt you the most? Think about what it is that's really, really important to you. In the past few years, I've had friends who've literally lost everything. One whose house burnt down, another one whose house was hit by a tornado, and they lost everything. And it makes you really recognise and take stock of what's important to you and to your family. So just take a moment to think about, if you were in that real unfortunate situation and lost everything, what is the bit that would really hurt you? What do you think would be irreplaceable? Do you know what? It's not the hours we spend at our desk. It's not necessarily the mementos or things like that. It might be the time or the quality time or the type of way in which you spend your life. So just take a moment. Then if you could swap your life with anybody else, doesn't matter about money, lifestyle or anything like that, who would you swap your life with? And why that person? What is it that you think they have that you don't have? Now I know for some people they go, really? Why am I thinking about those things? Well, do you know what? Please don't compare your start to somebody else's start, middle or end. We all need to be unique. We all need to recognise our own talents, and we all need to think about what it is that we're trying to achieve. It's a little bit like that definition of success. The definition of success means so much to so many people. And what I want you to think about is you and your life, and actually to craft your why. So some of you already know my story, but my story is such that my why is all around my family. In 2008, I had children who died. And fast forward a few years, I ended up very lucky to now be the mum to James and Jacob, my 2 boys. And I work for myself in order that I can be around for them and do things for them. Now, they've both taught me a lot of fantastic lessons in life and in business, and at times they can drive me absolutely potty, but I wouldn't change it for the world. So think about your why. It might be that you're money driven. It might be that you're professional driven, work driven, travel, all of those things. None of it is wrong. But what you need to know is what motivates you. And when you understand what really motivates you and drives you forwards, then actually we can start to look at the goals and the lifestyle and create that life that you want moving forwards. So think about the various areas of your life. What are your thoughts around money, professional development, life generally, family, travel, spiritual? There is no right or wrong answer. This is very much a personal exercise and it's all about you. And do you know what? At different times in our life, we can be motivated by different things. And that's not wrong either. So it is really worthwhile to sit down and review what happened in the past 12 months and what you want to happen moving forwards. Once we've done that, let's start to think about our vision. And knowing what that why is, think about, is what I'm doing moving me towards that? Or do I just say yes to everything? As PAs, EAs, VAs, admin professionals, we are so used to saying yes, and very rarely do we ever say no. We tend to be people pleasers, and I'm sorry if any of you are offended by me saying that. But sometimes we think of others before we think of ourselves. And what I'm asking you to do here is to think about yourself. And that's quite hard. So this is a journey. It's not a one-stop shop. And I want you just to take a little bit of time and start to capture where you would like to be in 10 years' time, where you'd like to be in 5 years' time, 3 years, 12 months, and 90 days. But when you're thinking about the 10 and the 5 and the 3 year, I really do want you to start out there at 10 first of all. If you start at your 12-month goal and then your 3-month goal and you build that way, you start to add realism into it. And instead, I actually just want you to think about the vision. What would you like your life to look like in 10 years' time? Don't overthink it, don't overanalyze it. Because actually what I'd like us to do is to create that life for you. One of my business coaches, if anybody ever sort of says to her, oh, do you know what, I think I'd like to do this in 5 years' time, or I know I want to do this in 5 years' time, it's like, why 5 years? Why can we not start building and living that life now? We don't have to do it all today, but actually let's start just building it. So, very simply, 10 years and a bullet point, 5 years and a bullet point, 3 years and a bullet point, 12 months from today and a bullet point of what you would like your life to look like. And then if you're married or something like that, I'd also be asking them or our partners, what is their 10-year goal, their 5-year goal, 3-year goal, 12 months? Because quite often when we've got commitments, be that family, partners, businesses or something like that, we need to make sure we're aligned with the other person. It isn't just us alone. Now, there are a variety of methods out there for goal setting and for creating that life you want. And I'm just going to share a couple of my favourite ones with you. I think the vast majority of us have heard of the SMART goal setting technique, and it tends to be the ones that line managers ask us to create when we're setting our professional objectives in the workplace. But a couple of the others that you may not have heard of are things like the massive goal theory or the good, better and best. So the massive goal theory is done by a guy called David Heiner, who says if you only ever set sensible and achievable goals, that's all you're ever going to get. Whereas actually, if we set big, massive goals, things that are going to stretch us, then actually we're onto a winning streak. And it's about putting the steps in place in order to get there. Good, better, best, well, they're my favourite actually when it comes to business. So if you're a virtual assistant and you have a financial goal, perhaps your financial goal for the year 2019 is to hit an income level, let's say of 25k. But actually, what would be better than that 25k is if you were to set an income goal of 30k. Now, what this means is if you hit your good goal of 25k, you're happy, you've ticked the box, you've achieved it, and that's great. But do you know what? If you just pushed yourself a little bit harder, you might get that better goal, which is going to be 30k. But do you know what? We're having a great year because actually we're applying these different tools and techniques, and actually we're going to push ourselves a little bit more. And the best year ever might be for 35k. Doesn't mean that we've failed if we only achieve 26 or 27k. We've had a good year, but we're working towards the better and the best. Now, those figures there are not necessarily true and realistic of VA income, but I wanted to give you something, and by working in 5k increments, it's a great way of just seeing how you can apply this. And it's a great one for virtual assistants to use. But let's say you're not a virtual assistant and you are a PA or an EA, and actually you are looking for some goals around your personal health and well-being. Perhaps you might want to set good, better and best goals there. The next technique I want to talk to you about is the mountain of goals theory. Now, the mountain of goals theory works well with SMART, massive goals and good, better and best. And I'll share with you what that looks like in a second. But it's a great way of pictorially demonstrating what it is you're trying to achieve. 90-day plans. I love 90-day plans, and I use 90-day plans with all of those theories above, or the methods of goal setting above. Because actually, do you know what? The year breaks down quite nicely into 90-day segments. And those 90-day segments are just a continuously rolling period. Finally, you might just want to list your goals or the things that you want to do. Now, your goals could be around your family and your relationships. They could be financial, they could be spiritual, well-being, personal. They could be around the public sector, charity, volunteer work, business growth. These are your goals, and you might have some that are personal and some that are professional. Or you might only have personal or professional. There is no right or wrong answer. And I think the problem is we are led to believe that we have to have goals in each of those areas. And you don't. We're creating your ideal life. So in the past, I've had clients who've had goals of relocating countries, leaving their employed roles to become self-employed, to start the process for self-employment. I've had others who literally wanted to change jobs or to improve their health and their well-being, to go on a bit of a journey there. So please don't worry about the goals that you're setting for yourself. These are for you, and you don't have to share them with anybody else. So when you know what that yearly goal is, if we break it down into 90-day segments, then actually we can start looking at what are the weekly tasks that we need to do to help us achieve the 90-day goal, which is going to help us achieve the yearly goal. And you might decide that actually it works out quite nicely to break it down into a list. as PAs, EAs and VAs, we love lists because we can tick them off. It's a great way of doing it. But perhaps you're even more visual than that and you like to see it broken down into the component tasks. So anybody who's done any of my VA webinars has probably seen this diagram before, because what I like to do is to say, let's imagine this to be a year. And at the bottom of the pyramid, I want you to write today's date underneath the pyramid. And next to the top box on the pyramid, I'd like you to write 1 year from today. Then I want you in that top box to put what the ultimate goal is. Now, let's say the goal is to organise your wedding or something like that. Now, I'm hoping that we've already got the partner sorted, but actually we're thinking about organising and planning a wedding. So in the box might be the wedding date, it could be the word wedding, whatever's right for you. And then I want you to break down all of the tasks that you need to do in order to do that wedding. Now, there are certain things that need to be done first before you do other things. So what we do is in the bottom of our pyramid, we put the jobs that we have to do first off. Now, if you haven't got the partner, it might be that one of those boxes says find a man or find a woman, etc. But actually, the reality is this could be things like choose a venue, go to the venue, meet the wedding planner, could be book a venue, could be do a taster of a menu at the venue, things like that. It could be at what point do you need to send your save the date notifications out or your invites out. Basically, this is about breaking down each of the tasks that you need to do to help you achieve that goal. Now, I've seen this sort of diagram been taken on huge sheets of papers, on backs of doors, on whiteboards, and people actually break it down into each box that they need to do or each task. But a great thing you can do is just literally take a piece of paper, draw a pyramid, break it down into sections, and then move it forward. I find that this particular method works well if you're quite a visual person, and many a VA I've known to plan their year this way, but then colour in all of the little boxes as and when they're doing the particular task. And it's just a great way of visualising where you're moving forwards to. So when we think about this, the 12-month goal is something we're shooting for. It needs to be tangible, but remember that massive theory, we do want to stretch ourselves a little bit. It needs to be, it doesn't need to have, but typically a goal has got a number associated with it. It's something quantifiable, so it's something that we can see that we're actually making a difference towards moving towards. And realistically, a goal is something we don't really have control over. When we have control over something, it tends to be a project or a task, and it might be helping us to move towards that goal. And I like to see that projects and tasks are the things that get us to that goal. And I hope that makes sense, actually. So here we've got the weekly goal, the tasks to achieve it, and then we can tick them off again. You'll see I like lists. Now, the good, better, best. This is just one way that you might like to capture your good, better, best. It's purely either 3 or 6 line boxes, depending how many goals you're setting yourself or how many things you're deciding you'd like to work towards improving in 2019. And it's just a very visual representation of how you can do it. So what resources do you need to help you set goals? Do you know what? You need very little. It might be that you like to use a physical planner, so a diary or sort of one of the planners that are available, or you might want to use an online calendar or something like that. You need to find what works for you. Personally, I like to plan on paper, but then I use my electronic calendars to help me sync with the family and things like that and stay in control. But I find that I can't plan electronically when I'm trying to look at my business goals or my personal aspirations. You might need some business tools, business training if you want to go from being employed to self-employed. But actually, if you're employed and you're looking for new roles within the company, you might need to look at doing some professional development or upskilling in particular areas to help you get that new role that you're really looking for. Other things is you might need to talk to people. You might need either a support network or just some accountability. And finally, you might want to look at coaching, mentoring or training to help you get to where you want to go. Now, a lot depends on whether that's a personal goal you're working towards or whether it's a professional goal you're working towards. So think about the resources that you personally need to help you get to where you want to go. Now, accountability and support, I think, are really, really critical in this. Now, it could be from something like a social media forum or support group, or you might actually have organisations within your companies that you work for that have some form of accountability and support. It could be your annual appraisal is the thing that motivates you to get you moving. But think about what you need to put in place to help you achieve those particular goals that you're setting for yourself. There is no right or wrong answer here. This really is, what is it you're trying to achieve? What's the life you're trying to give yourself? Is it that you want to relocate, travel the world? Is it you want to get married, settle down, have a family? Is it that actually you're striving for the next rung on the promotion ladder? Think about what you need to do in order to get there and not worry about anybody else around you. It's about remembering what's important to you, understanding the why and the path that you're going to have in order to get there. So these are your goals and they're nobody else's, but actually being accountable and sharing them with somebody might just help motivate you to achieve it. So how can we stay motivated? For most of us, our goals, we might set them off in January, but actually come February, we've forgotten what they are. I always think it's really useful to have just a one-page document that's visible, whether it's in your planner, whether it's on your whiteboard, whether it's on your desktop of your computer. And I don't mean as a document that's hidden, but just something visible to help you move forwards. Now, some people find vision boards really, really helpful. Others find working the list technique works. It's whatever's right for you. But here are 10 ways that you can stay motivated in order to achieve that goal. It's about having belief in yourself and your abilities. And if you don't have the skills in order to do something, then put the measures in place in order to get those skills so that you can have that belief in yourself. I also want you to acknowledge and celebrate the small stuff, the small wins, the well dones, the testimonials, the thank yous when somebody praises you, and even actually when you've achieved something that you didn't think you could do. It's great when we get the big wins and the people acknowledgements and things like that, but actually just think about what's important to you. I'd also like you to practice gratitude and visualise your end result. This is about, you'll remember I said, thinking about what's the vision, what's the why, what are we working towards, So it's not necessarily having a 10-year goal that's had too much realism put into it. What I want us to do is to create the life we want to live. And then putting the steps in place in order to get there. And those steps could be a daily action. We need to think about embracing positivity and learning to let go. One of my clients was working with another mentor as well, and they got her to stop being so attached to the outcome. And it was when she stopped emotionally attaching herself to the outcome and actually learnt to let go and to allow the situation to unfold around her. And I don't necessarily mean in a bad way, I just mean to not worry about being the control freak. Do you know what? Life was so much better, and she was more motivated to achieve her goals. And she is achieving her goals because it's not that she doesn't care less, but she stopped being attached to the outcome. We need to think about focusing on moving forward and not on perfection. And we also need to recognise when do we need to ask for help and when do we need to get support. Okay? They're really important actually. Focus on moving forwards and not perfection. When we need to ask others to help us to achieve something, and when we need to get formal support. And it might be, for whatever it is that your goal is, that you need to put some things in place. So perhaps you need to look at qualifications, certificates, accreditations, improving your experience, getting a practical working knowledge of something. It may be legal processes. Think about what it is you need in order to get there and then start to put those steps in place. Because ultimately, you are the controller of your destiny, and actually, it's about the measures that you put in place to help you get there. Okay? There is all the support out there that you want, but sometimes you've got to think about, what do I personally need to do to help me get there? So, this is all achievable for you. Creating the life you want in 2019 is really within your control. And what I want to do is leave you with these lasting thoughts really about how much control you actually have. So it is about taking time to stop, review, take stock of what's happened in the past and what do we need to do to move forwards. It's about being mindful and healthy. It's about being compassionate. And ideally what I want you to be is to be open to learning, open to new opportunities, open to listening to others, and actually sometimes just being open to going with it. It's about being inspired, but at the same time thinking about your why and what it is you're trying to achieve. It's about being focused, and then it's about being positive. It's realising that sometimes we have to go down a path in order to get to where we need to go. And by that, I mean that sometimes things won't necessarily go to plan, but invariably we're there to learn a lesson to help us get to where we want to be. And then once we've done this, we can rinse and repeat it. And sometimes we need to rinse and repeat multiple times, and that's fine. But do you know what? I chose these sort of messages on this slide to remind you, yes, we need to have goals, but those goals need to make us happy. These need to be personal. They need to be for us, not what somebody else tells us. We need to dream big and actually not just go for smart objectives, but really push ourselves and stretch ourselves. Because actually, do you know what? When we achieve that, we actually feel in a much better place and we can encourage ourselves to move forward in other ways. And do you know what? You've got this. You really have. It's how much do you want it? So what I will say is if you want to go from being a PA or an EA or an admin professional to leaving that employed role and setting up for self-employment, so you've got that much greater control over your life in 2019, then please feel free to connect with me. I offer a variety of training courses at different pricing points, everything from free through to paid for one-to-one coaching programs that are flexible and bespoke to you. I also do things like VIP experiences, workshops, training, coaching, training, mentoring, all of those things. But if that self-employment is the thing that you want to do and you're not quite sure and you've got questions about it, I've got some free resources I will happily send to you. Just reach out to me, message me and say, look, I've listened to Adminchat. I know this is the plan for me for 2019 and I'd like to take that forward. And so all that leaves me to say is thank you very much. If you've got any questions, what I would love for you to do is to contact me via the details that are on the website, not on the website, on the screen in front of you, which is www.vact.co.uk, or ping me an email. And if you're watching this live on Adminchat, then be sure to tweet me at VA Training Pro and use the hashtag Adminchat. Thank you very much, and I wish you well for 2019 in creating that life that you really, really want. Okay, take care.